So it seems it's time for us to delve into Ruka's past and see just how she might have ended up here at the hospital. Problem is that much like Masaki's room, Ruka's room is locked. But we are pretty much immediately given a hint about where we might be able to find a key. Problem is that the hint is something that we haven't seen yet. Definitely don't recall any tableau of 5 handmaidens. I guess it could be somewhere up here on the 3rd floor. We didn't explore every door down this way. And it definitely seems like that vanishing ghost is a good indicator that indeed there is more to the 3rd floor for us to explore now. Yeah, in the previous chapter playing as Masaki, this door would have been locked, but I do get the feeling it's going to be unlocked for us now. And it does lead us into what appears to be a room full of frames. And I almost want to say these frames might have previously had some pictures or paintings inside of them. In fact, my dull sense is tingling, and I feel there might be an art critic hidden somewhere amongst all these paintings. But while these initial works are pretty faded and not very clear, there are a few more works of art further down the hallway here. And while they are mostly faded, 1 or 2 of them are still somewhat clear. In fact, one of them is exactly the thing that we are looking for. Though it seems that the tableau has been somewhat altered by time, or something more supernatural. Yeah, by snapping that shot, we do get a new item. And as you might already be able to guess, it is indeed the key to Ruka's room. Yeah, the one other painting that I feel was pretty clear at the end of the hallway here was the one at the very far end. And it almost looks like a woman in a red kimono, which I feel looks kind of familiar. Still, along with that, we can find a few additional upgrade items here. But yeah, since we now have that key, we can head back to Ruka's room and start our investigation on her past. Or at least we could. But it appears that that vanishing ghost is not exactly done with us just yet. Yeah, it seems that vanishing ghost and the occupant of this room was a very special patient here at the hospital. One that was very artistically inclined, though he seemed to be, I guess, a little focused on one particular subject. Yeah, this woman clad in red, surrounded by figures with very distorted faces. In fact, looking around the room here, you'll find a number of pieces that seem very focused on the face and torso and arms. Now, whether this is just artistic license or maybe something deeper, well, there is a very definite answer to that. In fact, it is written down right here in this notebook. Yeah, it seems that the artist was afflicted with Luna Sedata, and he had his memories burnt away and replaced with a very horrific memory that seemed to drive him constantly in his art, though he seemed to think it was being reborn into a new artistic phase. Whether that was true or not seems kind of a moot point since he is very much dead. Still, hidden behind the easel here, we find a very large storehouse of upgradable crystals. Though beyond that, there's mostly just flavor items on the wall and on the easel itself to give us further backstory, I guess, on this artist. Yeah, it definitely seemed like the artist was tortured and overwhelmed with with this singular memory of this woman in red. Still, he was not alone in his tormented state. In fact, he did have an art assistant. Got tucked away here in this little side area. Yeah, is another Hazuki doll. Along with what I can only conceive to be a very difficult means to mix up your paint. But all that aside, we can now safely, hopefully, head back to Ruka's room and actually start our investigation. And Ruka's room does have its own little bit of personality. A very slight breeze, ruffling dilapidated furniture here and there. Along with a brand new tape that I think, much like Masaki's tape, will illustrate a little bit of her child backstory.
Tape 回ってます。どうだい？どんな気分かな？
お面をかぶると違う人が入ってくるの。わからなくなって 眠ってるみたいで、だんだん声がして。
それはいつからかな。昨日かな。
わからない。ごめん。いろんなものになるってお父さんが言ってた。でもお父さんも違う人になったの。わかるもん。
そうか。
お家に帰れる？
もうすぐだよ。
お父さんも治るの？
すぐに良くなる。お母さんにもすぐ会える。
お父さんにも。
So we get another mention of a mask, but more importantly, I think this is the first mention of Ruka's father, who I believe is a very focal point in her past. Along with that, the one other thing that seems to dominate the room is this piano. Yeah, as we've already learned previously, Ruka is indeed musically inclined. And there is a very good chance that it might, I guess, spurn some past memory. Because we already know that that very distorted tune also seems to trigger something within Ruka. And in fact, on the bed here, we do get our first entry into Ruka's childhood diary, where she goes in a little bit regarding the hospital. It did make her feel a little bit better, but she still questioned the mask she was forced to wear, and also the horrible distorted tune that made her remember really, really terrible things. Seems though she only hoped that with the treatment she'd be able to get back home and be with her father and mother again. Before we get to the piano, not only do we have a few more upgrade items here, but my doll senses tingling yet again, and this one can be especially difficult to find, because it is snug as a bug right between the bed and the wall. Without that out of the way, as before, the piano is more than likely going to be the key to solving or unlocking Ruka's past. It's just before we had found sheet music, and, well, we don't have any further inspiration for right now. I mean, right adjacent to it is this music box here. Problem is that it doesn't really seem to spark anything in Ruka either, so for right now, I guess we can just start looking elsewhere. Or maybe there is some memory that we can possibly spark from the music box. There is one slight problem, though. And that is there is a gear missing, and it won't actually play fully. But if we snap a quick shot, are shown that the missing gear is actually right nearby. We saw that crib in the previous update in Masaki's room, and yeah, that should be unlocked and right next door. If you're wondering, though, if Masaki and Ruka here might run into each other, I wouldn't really hold your breath. Their timelines are kind of jumbled, and it's a bit hard to tell just, what times they are doing things, or if they are actually overlapping. Still, along with the item in the crib, there is one additional item on the ground and a couple other things of interest in the room. Still, the item on the ground is only some upgrade items, but behind the partition here is something a bit more interesting. The previous dormant spirit radio is now seemingly reacting to, I suppose, Ruka's past. And in fact, it seems to hint about something secretive that Ruka hid underneath something. Still, we'll look into that later. For right now, we should probably get that music box running by getting the cog. That should be right here in the crib. But yeah, for now, I think we should be good to go. First things first, we do have to deal with a very nasty run-in from a ghost we ran into last time in Masaki's room, and this doesn't go quite as well as I hoped. Now, it's not that this ghost is particularly hard. Kind of have some bad luck of the draw with some of the furniture and the environment kind of blocking my shots, and having my view obstructed by this very over-contrasted filter. Still, after a few very unlucky combinations of attacks, finally get in one good Fatal Frame combo, which seals the Doctor's fate. And the especially lucky thing is that, as opposed to Masaki, Ruka actually does have a very nice collection of healing items, so we are not totally screwed. Still, with all that out of the way, I think we are now safe to go fix that, or go look at that music box. Also, we will be getting that item later. Just for right now, I feel like we've been a little bit too sidetracked from actually, learning more about Ruka's past. Now, placing the gear isn't all we have to do. Instead, we are going to have to rearrange the rest of the gears to make sure all of them are spinning. Now we can see that one gear is already spinning, and all of the reddish tinged gears are ones that we cannot move. So, the basic idea of this puzzle is that we want to move all of the gears in such a way as they are all invariably moving. In the end, it's not really that difficult of a puzzle. You just have to realize that none of the gears can overlap, so these larger gears, well, you do have to keep in mind where to place them. In the end, I guess the closest shape I can probably say as a point of reference that you want to do here is, I guess, maybe an H. With this haunting melody playing, I think we should have good enough inspiration to play the piano. And this is much like the piano playing puzzle we did earlier with Ruka. Only thing to keep in mind is that it's less of a question of actually keeping the rhythm, and mostly just making sure that you are not playing too slow.
So, 上手ね。ねえルカ、もっと上手に弾けるようになったら。
With that tune, though, Ruka is transported back into her subconscious, to a place that seems both foreign and yet strangely familiar. And indeed, the reason that this place seems familiar is because this is Ruka's childhood home. Here in her diary, she talks about playing out in the garden and hearing her father hard at work making masks, that it seems that her father isn't giving her the attention she's normally used to. Yeah, it seems that overall, Ruka's relationship became a bit strained with her father. Indeed, it seems that we are not alone in our memory of our old home. Instead, we are accompanied by our mother, who we learn is named Sayaka. Now, as you can imagine, Sayaka has quite a number of problems in her life. These include a incredibly mentally sick daughter, who she found just standing out in the garden staring up at the moon, and who she fears might bloom any day now. That's why she goes to a mysterious Dr. Haibara for, I guess, possible help. In fact, where she was looking down right here seems to be that aforementioned courtyard. But the problems in the family aren't simply limited to poor young Ruka. It seems also that Sayaka is having some troubles with her husband. His mask making has become almost an obsession that he spends all of his time with, and he's also forcing that obsession onto young Ruka, making her wear the masks that he makes at all times of the night. If anything, Sayaka just wishes for her husband back, who we also learned his name is Soya? In the end, though, she kind of thinks that it's probably best that she keeps Ruka away from her husband in his ever-increasing madness. For now, I think that the best possible location for us to head to next might be down in that courtyard. It could very well be that whatever Sayaka saw Ruka holding down there under that moonlit sky might be the key to whatever we have to do next. In fact, that definitely seems where the game is trying to hurt us right now. Also, we see plenty of masks just decorating almost every room of this house, going along with the father's profession and obsession. In the end, though, outside of a vanishing ghost that we can quickly snap of, I'm assuming, Ruka, there's actually no way for us to get out into the courtyard. Instead, the only thing of interest is waiting for us on the table here. And it's apparently a picture of Ruka's father. So we do manage to learn a bit more about Ruka's tumultuous home life as a child. And I guess her inevitable internment here by her mother to not only get away from her father, but hopefully to get some cure for the Luna Sedata.
Luka, また忘れて。
It also seems like Sayaka is trying to tell us there might be something more in the room here. only do we find a very small key, but hidden in a box underneath Ruka's bed, we find a final entry in Ruka's diary, where she talks about the festival that is supposed to be happening soon, as well as her general hope of being cured of Luna Sedata, though that means that, well, her memories of her father and her past might very well disappear, which she really doesn't want. Also, along with that notebook, that diary, we also find what appears to be a very simply made wooden mask who I think looks a tiny bit familiar. So it seems that with Sayaka's attempts to get Ruka away from her maddened father, and to hopefully get her cured of her Luna Sedata, instead she seemed to just get her, I guess, even more embroiled into a very strange ritual regarding these masks. Still, that does elucidate a lot of backstory for Ruka, especially regarding her time here at the hospital. Problem is that, well, that doesn't really give us any direction about where to go next. Still, it seems that, at least with this vanishing ghost, we are seemingly being beckoned away from the third floor living quarters here. And especially considering the fact that we have explored all that we can, it does make sense that, well, maybe we should start heading towards other areas of the hospital. And to further cement that point, in the nurse's office here, we already find two new pieces of interest. The first being a pretty disheartening nurse's note. The hospital has seemingly undergone a transformation to a very stagnant, creepy, dismal place where nurses die, patients go crazy, and the doctors seemingly don't know what to do. There was also seemingly a kidnapping here, and the mother of one of the kidnapped children apparently left some items behind which the nurse was keeping safe. And as you might be able to guess, that nurse we just saw, adjacent to the new item in the back, is definitely an indication of that item that the mother of the kidnapped child might have left behind. Yeah, it's our final entry for Sayaka's diary. and the place where we are going to use that odd small key we found. Inside this very lengthy diary entry here, Ruka's mother goes over how the detective, Choshiro, who I think we played as previously, found the young Ruka here just underneath a very strange tunnel underneath the Haibara hospital. She seemed very dazed and confused in a very strange state of dress, and, well, yeah, it was at that point that Ruka's mother kind of realized that Haibara Hospital was very much a mistake. So it seems that Ruka's mother found out about found out about the passageway where Ruka was found deep underneath the hospital. And in the end, it seems that even though Ruka lost her memory, Sayaka felt that was probably for the best considering all the horrible things that she had to deal with as a child. And that, well, there was a possibility that remembering might re-trigger the Luna Sedata and lead to her daughter's inevitable blooming and subsequent death. So why not just try to remember the good things rather than try to uncover the past? Possibly a good idea to indulge in, but at this point it's probably a little bit too late to really go too far in that mindset. But yeah, we have managed to collect quite a few blue crystals, and at this point, I think it might be good to invest in some speed upgrades for Ruka's camera, since it really does seem to take quite a bit of time for it to charge up. Hopefully that and a little bit more practice in combat will mean things should hopefully go a little bit more smoothly in the future. For now, though, well, it did mention that there was a passageway on the ground floor leading from this area over to Haibara Hospital, and I get the feeling that whatever answers we seek might very well be in that, well, deep underground tunnel that Choshiro found himself in previously. So it is off to the ground floor that we go. Seems though we do have to evade that malevolent and unbeatable Black Spectre before we can head over to where we need to. Thankfully, by ducking into the dining room here, we can pretty swiftly evade her, though she is kind of slow, so any other doorway past her might also work as well. Now, the door that I'm thinking might be the passageway that we need to get over to Haibara Hospital from here is one that we have passed by before, but I don't really think I had checked it previously. In the hallway leading down to the Museum, there was these double doors here that were very large. these are how we're going to have to get down to Haibara Hospital, but first, yeah, we are going to have to find a key. And the location for that key is going to be down in the basement for this area, or this wing of the hospital. And if I recall, the doors down to the basement are actually pretty close by. Still, I have to kind of thank my lucky stars that we don't get another return visit from that horrible black specter. Be pretty bad to run through her down in this cramped area. Thankfully, that was just a vanishing ghost and not an actual instance of us having to evade her. Still, all these visits, while very much a harbinger of doom and gloom, does mean that we are still on the right track for where we need to be. Though I don't really see a key down there. Though we do manage to find one in the darkness. With another return visit of, I think, a very familiar nurse enemy that we fought a few other times, though this time she is, I don't know, she is only a visiting vanishing ghost. Now, along with the item on the table there, we also find a brand new power lens here on the ground, though I think we did get one of these similar lenses for Misaki. But on the table here, we do get sucked up into a little bit of a very nasty trap. Yeah, that enemy nurse is very much still an enemy. She just decided to try and trick us rather than just engaging us in straight combat. The good thing is, now that we can much more quickly power up our camera, that means we can get some very nice full-powered fatal frame shots and easily dispatch her. And in reality, it wasn't just a simple trap without a reward. Instead, we learned that this nurse was taking care of a very special patient somewhere in the hospital. Patient that seemed to be in a coma, almost in a state of almost death. And yet she could still hear something coming from the unconscious body. whoever she was keeping watch over was apparently a very dangerous and very pivotal figure to the story. Also, there is an optional fight you can get into in that side corridor there, but it's an enemy that we'll just fight later, so we're not going to worry about that for right now. Instead, it's time we go back upstairs and check out this passageway over to the Haibara Hospital. Yeah, this particular passageway seems to be a continuation of, I guess, the museum/historical portion of the Institute. And I think it was meant to connect it to, I guess, what would have been a future exhibit of the condemned Haibara Hospital. Before we can get to Haibara Hospital proper, you do have to deal with a, well, possibly dangerous encounter if you do try to fight both of these patient ghosts in that narrow area of the corridor. I suppose it can also be dangerous if you don't realize that there are two patient ghosts to deal with, but as opposed to the nurse and doctor combination, neither one of these patients are especially aggressive or swift for that matter, so even though there are two, they are a lot easier to deal with. It is especially nice to be able to quickly get off these full-powered shots. But with all the excitement now died down, I do realize that my doll sense is indeed tingling, and this is another, actually very easy to miss Hazuki doll. Yeah, you'll notice that one of these windows is a bit more open and visible to the outside world. And there is a good reason for that, because in the nearby tree there, hidden amongst the branches, is that Hazuki doll. But with all that finally out of the way, it is now time for us to hopefully enter Haibara Hospital. Yeah, a somewhat familiar location that we visited previously as the detective. And while there are quite a few rooms open to us right now for exploration, there's not really that much of a reason to. Instead, our primary goal is going to be the elevator that is located right here. And indeed, our journey down to the very lowest floor is not going to be a lonely journey in the least. Because not only are we accompanied by that young girl in the elevator itself, but as we make our way down floor by floor, yeah, there is going to be an easily missed vanishing ghost waiting for us. As well as a Hazuki doll that I always manage to have trouble getting. We should be able to get it at some point in the future, though for right now, I think we have finally reached our destination and hopefully a place where maybe Ruka can get final answers about her past.
This ずっと時が止まっているような。あ、私ここにいたことがある。なんだろう、ずっとここにいたかったような甘い感覚。自分が溶けていくような。